Trade routes stretched like arteries. Caravans moved cattle, salt, and gold to the Swahili coast, and from ports like Kilwa, those goods sailed out to Arabia, India, and China. Chinese porcelain has been found in the ruins. Welcome to Omar's Story Nook, where history gets spicy, legends get a remix, and imagination runs wild. Every tale you hear is a whisper of Omar, echoing across time, truth, and shadow. In the belly of southern Africa, past the brush and the heat, past the colonial maps and the lies they carried, stand the bones of a forgotten empire. Stone walls, spiraling towers, no mortar, no glue, no blueprint, just brilliance stacked into silence. Great Zimbabwe, not a myth, not a mystery, a capital, a power, a statement. But when white boots crossed the savannah and saw those ruins, they didn't ask how. They said, no way. They couldn't believe Africans built this, so they buried it in doubt, stamped it with denial, and called it anything but African. But the stones remember, and the truth still stands 36 feet high. This is not just a story about stone, it's about what happens when black brilliance breaks the box, and what happens when the box can't take it. This is the story of Great Zimbabwe, the empire carved in granite that colonizers tried to erase. Let's go back, way back. Sometime around the 11th century, in what we now call Zimbabwe, a civilization began laying stones, not for fences, not for graves, but for glory. And here's the wild part: they didn't use mortar, not a drop. Each granite block was hand cut, hand shaped, and hand fitted, stacked in tight formation, curving like rivers, rising like scripture. This wasn't a small village tucked in shadows. This was a city, Great Zimbabwe. It grew to house over 20,000 people. And it wasn't just stone, it was wealth. Gold shimmered through the market, ivory traded hands like silk. There were blacksmiths, farmers, artisans, priests, politicians. The central feature, the great enclosure, a massive ring of carved stone, 36 feet tall, 13 feet thick, enclosing mystery. In the center of that, a conical tower, no doorway, no windows, no clear function. Some say it symbolized grain, others say it represented authority, fertility, or spirit. But here's the point: it was architectural genius, stone speaking symbolism, and no blueprint on earth could explain how this was done, unless you honored the genius behind it, which they didn't. But we do, because Great Zimbabwe wasn't just a city, it was proof. Proof that pre colonial Africa wasn't dark, it was lit. This wasn't some isolated kingdom tucked in dry bush. Great Zimbabwe was a global node in a world of gold, grain, and glory. Its kings, called Mambos, were chosen by both spiritual signs and political consensus. No simple bloodline, it was leadership with accountability. From this inland capital, trade routes stretched like arteries. Caravans moved cattle, salt, and gold to the Swahili coast, and from ports like Kilwa, those goods sailed out to Arabia, India, and China. Chinese porcelain has been found in the ruins. Persian glass, Indian beads, coins from Asia, ceramics from Arabia. The wealth was international, the architecture symbolic. Those circular walls, they weren't for defense, they were design. The curves mirrored community, spirituality, balance. Great Zimbabwe was more than city planning, it was cosmology in stone. It influenced other kingdoms like Kami and Mapungubwe. It birthed legacies still felt in southern Africa. But no glory lasts forever. By the 15th century, Great Zimbabwe began to decline. Why? Scholars debate. A drying climate, overgrazed lands, exhausted mines, shifting trade routes to the coast. Whatever the reason, the people moved on. to new centers, new capitals, but the stones stayed, waiting for the next storm. Then the white men came in khaki suits with maps and magnifying glasses. And when they saw the ruins of Great Zimbabwe, they panicked because the walls didn't look primitive. They looked planned, precise, poetic. So they made a choice to rewrite what they couldn't explain. In 1871, German explorer Karl Mauch stood inside those walls and said, "This must be biblical. Maybe it's Ophir, King Solomon's gold mine." And just like that, the lie began. For the next 100 years, British archaeologists bent the truth like wet bamboo. They destroyed artifacts. They downplayed African craftsmanship. They published reports blaming Arabs, Phoenicians, even Chinese builders. Why? Because if Africans had built this, the whole colonial narrative collapses. You see, colonizers sold the lie that Africa was backward, uncivilized, childlike. But Great Zimbabwe blew that lie wide open. So they covered it up, literally. Even in the early 20th century, archaeologists were ordered to attribute the ruins to non-Africans. White supremacy wasn't just guns and whips. It was paper, it was textbooks, it was silence. But stone doesn't lie. Stone outlasts denial, and eventually the truth fought back. Today, the ruins of Great Zimbabwe rise like a monument to memory, not just a site, but a soul. In 1980, as Zimbabwe gained independence, the nation chose its name from these ruins. Zimbabwe means house of stone, a tribute, a return, a reclaiming. Now, school children walk those walls and run their fingers along the grooves. Poets write verses where soldiers once marched. Historians clean the colonial dust off the truth. And the world finally listens. African architects study the pattern, spiritual leaders bless the soil, and musicians turn it into lyrics because Great Zimbabwe was never lost, just ignored, erased with intention, now restored with power. So when someone asks, "Where are Africa's castles? Where is its legacy?" You take them to those curving stone walls and you say, "We built, we ruled, we traded with the world, and when you forgot us, our stones still remembered." You can lie in a book, you can lie on a map, but you can't lie to stone. Great Zimbabwe still rises, without mortar, without apology, a crown of granite worn by ancestors who didn't need permission to be brilliant. Until the next whispers of Oma, stay listening. The Great Zimbabwe Empire, stone, gold, and shattered myths. Truth carved where lies crumble.